Caleb Stone ripped the photograph in half and let the pieces fall into the dirt. His scarred hand wouldn't stop shaking. The stagecoach hadn't even fully stopped, and he already knew. The woman climbing down, honey-colored hair escaping from Pin's jaw set like she was walking into a fight. Instead of a dusty Wyoming station, she wasn't what he'd asked for. She wasn't plain. She wasn't forgettable. She was the kind of woman who'd burn through every wall he'd built and leave him with nothing but ash. If you want to see how Caleb and Clara's story unfolds, hit that subscribe button right now and stay with me until the very end. Drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from so I can see just how far this story travels. The June heat pressed down like a punishment. Caleb turned for his horse. Done. Finished. He'd ride back to his ranch, write the agency. No, he'd have Tom write the agency, demand a refund. Simple. Clean. No damage. Mr. Stone. Her voice caught him mid-step. Not soft, not sweet. Direct like a woman who'd spent her whole life cutting through nonsense to get to what mattered. He didn't turn around. Mr. Stone, I know you heard me. Ma'am, there's been a mistake. Has there? Caleb's jaw clenched. He could feel the other passengers watching. The station manager had stopped pretending to sort mail. Two old men on the bench had leaned forward like they were watching a dogfight. He turned slowly. She was closer than he expected. Close enough that he could see the dust ground into her traveling coat. The dark circles under her amber eyes. The raw blisters on her palms where she'd been gripping the coach rail for 3 days straight. 3 days on rough roads in this heat. 3 days of bad food and worse company and a sun that never stopped beating down. She looked exhausted. She looked like she'd crawl through hellfire before she'd admit it. The arrangement, Caleb started. I was specific about what I needed. You were specific about what you wanted. She stepped forward. Those ain't the same thing. I asked for someone plain. You asked for someone safe. Clara Weston pulled off her traveling gloves one finger at a time. Her hands were calloused, working hands, hands that had held hammers and hot metal. Someone who wouldn't make you feel anything, someone you could keep at arm's length without it costing you. Caleb's throat went dry. You don't know a damn thing about me. I know you got burned saving men in the war. She nodded at his scarred arm visible below his rolled sleeve. I know you've been running 400 acres alone for 5 years, which means you're either the hardest working man in Wyoming or the most stubborn. How do you? I know you wrote to that agency 3 times, and every single letter said the same thing underneath all the words about needing help with the ranch. She stepped closer. Don't send anyone who'll make me care. Caleb felt the ground shift under his boots. How do you know what my letters said? Because Mrs. Patterson at the agency read them to me. Every word. She thought I should know what I was walking into. Then why the hell did you come? Something flickered across Clara's face. Quick, raw, gone before he could name it. Because I'm tired of being looked at instead of listened to. Her voice didn't waver. Because every man back east saw this face and decided I was decoration. Something to put on a shelf and admire. And when I turned out to have opinions and a backbone and hands that actually knew how to work, they lost interest real fast. She wasn't performing. Caleb could tell. He'd spent 5 years reading cattle and horses and weather and men who wanted something from him. He knew performance. This wasn't it. I came because your letters were honest. Clara continued. Badly written and misspelled worse than a child's, but honest. Something cold shot through Caleb's chest. The misspelling. She'd noticed. And I came because I'd rather be useful than beautiful, but you're about to send me back because of the one thing I can't control. Her amber eyes locked onto his. So go ahead, Mr. Stone. Put me back on that stage. But don't pretend it's because I'm not what you need. It's because you're too scared to find out I might be exactly what you need. The station fell silent. Even the relentless summer wind seemed to hold its breath. Caleb's scarred hand curled into a fist at his side. His horse shifted behind him, waiting. Every sane thought in his head screamed the same thing. Let her go. Protect yourself. Beautiful women leave. Sarah proved that. This one would too. But Sarah never looked at him like this. Sarah never stood in dust and exhaustion and spoke to him like he was worth the effort of honesty. 1 month? Caleb heard himself say. Clara's eyes narrowed. What? 1 month. No wedding. You work the ranch. I see what you're made of. His voice came out rougher than he intended. You can't handle it, you leave. No hard feelings. And if I can handle it, then we talk. About what? About everything. Clara studied him the way he'd seen horse traders study yearlings. Measuring. Calculating. Deciding if the investment was worth the risk. I'll make you a better deal, she said. 1 month. I work like any hand you'd hire. You don't treat me different because I'm a woman. You don't go easy. You don't protect me from the hard parts. She extended her hand. Calloused palm. Strong fingers. And you stop looking at me like I'm a problem you need to solve. Caleb shook her hand. Her grip was firm, confident. The grip of someone who'd sealed deals before and meant every one of them. My wagon's over there, he said. It's a rough ride. I've had rougher. Ken. They didn't speak for the first 30 minutes. The wagon jolted over dried ruts in the road, and Clara sat straight-backed beside him, her bag between her feet, her eyes moving across the land with sharp attention. Caleb tried not to watch her. Failed. You're staring, Clara said without turning. Just wondering what you're thinking. I'm thinking your fence line hasn't been repaired in 2 seasons. I'm thinking those posts are rotting from the base, which means you've got water pooling somewhere it shouldn't. And I'm thinking you've been so busy surviving, you haven't had time to actually maintain what you've got. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. You get all that from a moving wagon. I get that from growing up watching my daddy run a blacksmith shop everyone said would fail. Her voice shifted, just slightly, just enough for him to hear the crack underneath. He taught me to look at a place and see what's breaking before I see what's working. Saves time. Your daddy sounds like a practical man. He was the best man I ever knew. Clara swallowed. Died 2 years back. Accident in the forge. Fire got out of control. Caleb's scarred arm burned with phantom memory. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be useful. She turned to face him. That's what he always said. What happened to your arm? Letter said war. Letter didn't say how. Caleb flexed his scarred left arm. The skin was mottled tight in places where it had healed wrong. Barracks fire. I was asleep. Woke up to screaming. Got 2 men out before the roof came down. The other men didn't make it. But you did. Sometimes I wonder if that was the point. The words came out before he could stop them. He hadn't meant to say that. Not to her. Not to anyone. Clara was quiet for a long moment. My daddy used to say survival ain't a punishment, even when it feels like one. It's an assignment. You're still here because there's something you haven't done yet. You believe that? Some days. She looked away. Other days I just put one foot in front of the other and hope the believing catches up. They rode in silence for another mile. The sun beat down mercilessly, and sweat ran down Caleb's back, soaking into his shirt. Clara didn't complain, didn't ask to stop, didn't do any of the things he'd expected. How bad is it? She asked finally. The ranch, really? Caleb could have lied. Almost did. But something about the way she'd spoken to him at that station, raw and unafraid, made lying feel wrong. Bad, he said. Lost 30 head last winter to wolves. Can't afford hired help. Barn needs work I can't do alone. And there's a man named Vernon Blackwood who's been buying up every small spread in this territory. The magistrate, Caleb's head snapped toward her. You know him. Know of him. Woman on the stage mentioned his name, said he was the most respected man in the territory. Clara's eyes hardened. Also said 3 families lost their land to bank debts he called in early. Funny how respect works out here. He wants my land for the railroad, has for 2 years. Has he made you an offer? 4 times, each one lower than the last. And when you refused, cattle started disappearing, fences started falling, supply shipments started getting lost between town and my place. So he's squeezing you. He's patient about it. That's what makes him dangerous. Caleb's jaw tightened. He doesn't come at you with guns. He comes with lawyers and patience and enough money to wait you out. Clara nodded slowly. I've seen that before. Back in Missouri, a mining company tried to take my daddy's forge. Same tactics, slow pressure, legal tricks, making life so hard you sell just to breathe. What happened? Daddy fought for 3 years, almost lost everything. Clara's voice went flat. But he kept records. Every threat, every suspicious accident, every document that didn't add up. When he finally got a territorial marshal to listen, the whole scheme fell apart. Your daddy won. My daddy survived. That's not the same as winning. She paused. The fight cost him his health, his savings, his will to keep going. He died 6 months after it ended, and I don't think it was the accident that killed him. I think it was the years of carrying weight no man should carry alone. The cabin came into view. Small, 1 room, stone fireplace, a barn that leaned slightly to the east. Caleb watched Clara take it in. Foundation's solid, she said. That's what matters. Only 1 room. I noticed. I can sleep in the barn. In June in Wyoming. Caleb almost smiled. Didn't quite make it. You'll cook alive. I've survived worse heat. Clara climbed down from the wagon. But I won't share a bed with a man I've known 4 hours. I'll take a bedroll by the door. Done it with my sisters growing up. She picked up her bag and walked toward the cabin, stopped at the door, turned. Caleb, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Go ahead. The letters you sent to the agency, the ones Mrs. Patterson read to me. Clara's voice dropped. Careful, precise. You didn't write them yourself, did you? The question hit Caleb like a mule kick to the chest. What makes you say that? Because the handwriting changed between the first letter and the third. The first one was shaky big letters, the kind of writing someone makes when they're copying shapes they don't fully understand. Her amber eyes held steady on his. The third one was smooth, different hand entirely. Someone helped you. Someone wrote the last 2 for you. Caleb's blood turned to ice. 5 years in Wyoming. 5 years of hiding it. 5 years of avoiding the general store's posted notices. Pretending he didn't need to read the newspaper. Memorizing prices by asking casual questions instead of reading the tags. His one secret. The one shame he carried deeper than his scars, deeper than Sarah's betrayal, deeper than anything the war had done to him. The words tangled when he tried to read. They jumped and switched places and refused to stay still. A doctor in the army had called it word blindness. Had said some men just couldn't make sense of letters, same as some men couldn't hear music right. It didn't mean they were stupid, it just meant their minds worked different. But try explaining that to people who thought reading was as natural as breathing. Tom helped me, Caleb said. The words came out like pulled teeth. Thomas Running Wolf runs a small place east of mine. He wrote the last 2 letters. And the first one? That one was mine. Caleb's voice went flat. Took me 6 hours, still got half the words wrong. He waited for it. The pity, the disgust, the careful rearrangement of her face into something that pretended not to judge while judging everything. He'd seen it before. The one time he'd told someone, a shopkeeper in town, who'd suddenly started speaking slower, louder, like he was simple instead of just different. Clara was quiet for a long time. "My daddy couldn't read either," she said finally. Not a word. Signed his name with an X his whole life. She set her bag inside the door. "It's why my mama ran the books before she passed. He did the ironwork, she did the letters. They were partners." Caleb's throat closed. "He wasn't stupid," Clara continued. "He was unlettered. There's a damn big difference, and anyone who can't tell them apart isn't worth your time." "You're not going to say anything else about it?" "What would you like me to say, that it changes something?" She shook her head. "It doesn't. I already knew from the letters that you were smart. Smart enough to survive alone out here. Smart enough to know you needed help, and brave enough to ask for it, even through an agency, even through a stranger's hand." She leaned against the doorframe. "The only thing it changes is now I understand why you really asked for someone plain." "What do you mean?" "You didn't just want someone who wouldn't leave. You wanted someone who wouldn't look too close, someone who wouldn't notice the things you're hiding." Clara's voice gentled, just barely. "Well, I'm sorry about that, Caleb, because I notice everything. It's the worst thing about me." Caleb stood in the fading light, his scarred hand hanging at his side, and felt something he hadn't felt since before the war. Seen. Not pitied. Not judged. Seen. "You still want to stay?" he asked. "Knowing all that, I didn't travel 800 miles to turn around because a man can't read. I traveled 800 miles because I was tired of being somewhere I wasn't needed." Clara straightened. "Now show me where you keep the water. I saw your pump on the way in. Lever's rusted at the joint. I can fix it before sundown if you've got tools." "You can fix a water pump." "I can fix anything made of metal. That's what a blacksmith's daughter does." She was already walking toward the pump, rolling up her sleeves. "I noticed you've been hauling water from the creek. Must be a quarter mile each way. That's 2 hours a day you're losing to a 15-minute repair." Caleb followed her, not sure what else to do. "Tools are in the barn," he said. "Then point me at them." She worked until the sun hung low and orange over the mountains. Caleb watched her break down the pump mechanism, clean rust from parts he didn't know had names, and reassemble the whole thing with hands that moved like they were having a conversation with the metal. When she pulled the lever and water gushed clear and strong, she didn't smile, didn't celebrate, just wiped her hands on her skirt and said, "Probably should check your stovepipe too. Saw soot marks on the cabin wall. Means you've got a blockage building up. Another month and you'll have a chimney fire. You saw that from the road. I told you, I notice things." That night, Clara built a fire with the efficiency of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Caleb sat across from her and asked the question he'd been holding since the station. Why me out of all the postings at that agency? Why pick the one from a broken-down rancher in the middle of nowhere? Clara didn't look up from the fire. "Because you were the only one who didn't promise me anything." "What?" "Every other man in those listings promised a good life, a warm home, children, happiness. Like they were selling something." She placed another piece of wood on the flames. "You promised hard work, bad weather, and loneliness. And I thought, now, there's a man who tells the truth. I can build something with a man who tells the truth. What if the truth is that I don't know how to let someone in?" Caleb's voice dropped. "What if the truth is that the last woman I trusted married my brother while I was lying in a hospital tent, wondering if I'd ever walk again?" Clara's hands stilled on the firewood. "Your brother. My younger brother. Daniel." Caleb stared into the flames. "I came home from the war with this arm and a knee that won't ever bend right again. Found Sarah wearing a ring Daniel put on her hand 2 months after I shipped out. She said she thought I was dead. Daniel said the same thing. But the dates didn't add up. They never do. Did you confront them?" "I stood on their porch and looked at them and didn't say a single word. Just turned around and walked away. Bought the first piece of land I could afford as far from Pennsylvania as I could get." His voice went hollow. Haven't spoken to either of them since. Clara was quiet for a long moment. "I'm not Sarah," she said finally. "I'm not going to promise you that, because you'll only believe it when I prove it. But I am going to tell you this one time, and I won't say it again." She stood, brushed off her skirt. "I don't break my word. Not for convenience. Not for comfort. Not for anyone. So whatever this month turns out to be, whatever you decide at the end of it, you will never be able to say that Clara Weston didn't keep her promises." She walked to her bedroll by the door and lay down with her back to him. "Good night, Caleb." Caleb sat by the fire for a long time after that. Outside, the summer wind carried the smell of sagebrush and distant rain. The horses shifted in what remained of the leaning barn. Somewhere in the darkness, a coyote howled, and the sound carried across the valley like a question nobody could answer. He looked at the woman sleeping by his door. A woman who'd crossed 800 miles to find a man who couldn't read, couldn't trust, and couldn't look at a capable woman without seeing the ghost of every promise that had ever been broken. She'd noticed everything. His arm, his knee, his letters, his shame. She'd noticed all of it, and she'd stayed anyway. Caleb pulled the blanket over his shoulders and closed his eyes. He didn't sleep. But for the first time in 5 years, the silence in the cabin didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like waiting. The fire burned low. Somewhere between midnight and dawn, Caleb's eyes opened to a soft sound. Rustling. Movement near the door. Clara was sitting up, a piece of paper in her hand. The moonlight caught her face, and the tears running silent down her cheeks. She was reading a letter. One she'd kept hidden in her bag. Before Caleb could speak, she folded it quick, pressed it to her chest, and lay back down. Her shoulders shook once, twice, then went still. Caleb didn't move. Didn't let her know he'd seen. But he remembered her words from the station. "I'd rather be useful than beautiful." And he wondered for the first time what she was running from. What secret sat folded in that letter? And whether 800 miles had been far enough. 3 days in. Clara hadn't broken, hadn't slowed, hadn't complained once about the heat that turned the cabin into an oven by noon, or the work that left her hands bleeding by sundown. Caleb woke before dawn on the 4th morning and found her bedroll empty again. Cold to the touch. She'd been up for at least an hour. He pulled on his boots and stepped outside into air that was already thick and warm. The sun wasn't even up yet, and sweat was already forming on his neck. He found her in the barn, crouched beside a broken wagon wheel, her hands black with axle grease. "Bearings shot," she said without looking up. "When's the last time you greased this?" "I don't remember." "That's the problem." Clara stood, wiped her hands on a rag. "Everything on this ranch is held together with prayer and stubbornness. Another month, and this wheel would have snapped on the road, probably with a full load." "I know." "So why is it still like this?" "Because fixing it right takes tools I don't have and money I can't spare." Clara reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather roll. She unfolded it to reveal a set of blacksmith's tools, each one worn smooth from use. "My daddy's," she said. "I can reshape the bearing. Take me half a day." "Clara, you've been up since before dawn. You worked until dark yesterday. You need to—" "I need to earn my keep." Her eyes met his. "You going to argue with me or hand me that hammer?" He handed her the hammer. She worked through the morning heat. Caleb tried to help, but she waved him off, said she worked faster alone. So he did the chores he could manage, fed the horses, checked the water pump she'd fixed, walked the near fence line looking for breaks. When he came back at midday, the wagon wheel was better than new. Clara sat in the shade of the barn drinking water from a tin cup, her face flushed red from heat and effort. "Not bad," Caleb said. Clara shook her head. "That's the second time you've said that. Is that all you know how to say?" "I don't do compliments." "I noticed." She stood, stretched her back. "We need supplies. I saw your stores. You've got maybe a week of flour left, and that salt pork's more salt than pork. I was planning to go to town next week. We should go today. The wagon's fixed. No sense waiting." Caleb's jaw tightened. Town meant people. People meant questions. Questions meant explaining who Clara was and why she was on his ranch. "I don't like town," he said. "I figured. But you need things you can't grow or shoot, and I need to send a letter." Something flickered across her face. Quick, guarded. "Someone's expecting to hear from me." The letter. The one she'd been crying over in the moonlight. Caleb didn't ask. Wasn't his business. Not yet. "All right," he said. "We'll go." The ride to town took 2 hours in the wagon. Clara sat beside him, quiet, her eyes on the road ahead. She'd changed into a cleaner dress, pulled her hair back neat. She looked almost proper. Almost like she belonged in a parlor instead of a barn. "You clean up different," Caleb said. "That a compliment? An observation? You're learning." Almost a smile. Not quite. They hit the main street just past noon. The town was small general store, bank, saloon, church, a few houses scattered like afterthoughts. People stopped what they were doing to watch the wagon roll by. Caleb felt their eyes, felt the whispers starting before they even climbed down. "They're staring," Clara said quietly. "They do that. At you or at me. Both now, I reckon." The general store was run by a woman named Widow Martha Brennan, 62 years old, sharp as a tack, and the only person in town who'd ever treated Caleb like a human being instead of a curiosity. "Well, well," Martha looked up from her counter as they walked in. Her eyes moved from Caleb to Clara and back again. Caleb Stone with a woman. Never thought I'd see the day. "Mrs. Brennan, this is Clara Weston. She's helping at the ranch." "Helping?" Martha's eyebrow went up. "Is that what they're calling it now?" "Ma'am, I'm exactly what he says I am." Clara stepped forward, extended her hand. "I came from Missouri to work. Nothing more, nothing less." Martha took her hand, held it a moment. Looked at the calluses, the strength in the grip. "Blacksmith's hands," Martha said. "My daddy's trade." "And your mama?" "School teacher, before she passed." Something shifted in Martha's face, softened. "You've got honest eyes, girl. That's rare out here." She released Clara's hand. "What do you need?" They gathered supplies: flour, salt, coffee, dried bean soap. Clara moved through the store like she'd memorized prices, checking weights, comparing quality, doing math in her head that Caleb couldn't follow. "This flour's been cut with something," Clara said, setting a bag back on the shelf. "Cornmeal, probably. The other one's pure." "How can you tell?" "Yeah, texture. Weight. My mama taught me." She picked up the other bag. "This one." Martha watched them with growing interest. "She's something your girl." "She's not my—" Caleb stopped. "It's complicated." "It always is, honey. It always is." They were loading the wagon when a voice cut across the street. "Mr. Stone, what a pleasant surprise." Caleb's blood went cold. Vernon Blackwood walked toward them like he owned the street. Which, in a way, he did. Tall, silver-haired, dressed too fine for the heat. His smile was warm. His eyes were ice. "Magistrate Blackwood," Caleb said. His voice came out flat. "I heard you had a visitor." Blackwood's gaze slid to Clara, lingered. "But no one mentioned she was so striking." "I'm Clara Weston." Clara didn't offer her hand. "And you are?" "Vernon Blackwood. I have the honor of serving as magistrate for this territory. Also the president of the First Bank of Wyoming." His smile widened. "Welcome to our little community, Miss Weston. I hope Mr. Stone is treating you well." "He's treating me fine." "I'm glad to hear it. Caleb here has been resistant to my offers of help over the years. Perhaps a woman's influence will help him see reason." Caleb's hands curled into fists. "We were just leaving." Of course, of course." Blackwood stepped aside, but his eyes stayed on Clara. "Miss Weston, if you ever need anything at all, my door is always open. It can be lonely out on those isolated ranches. A woman shouldn't have to suffer loneliness." "I'm not suffering." "Not." Clara climbed onto the wagon. "And I don't get lonely. I get busy." Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or the beginning of a different kind of interest. "Spirited," he said. "I like that." He tipped his hat. "Good day, Miss Weston. Mr. Stone." Caleb snapped the reins harder than necessary. The wagon lurched forward. They were half a mile out of town before Clara spoke. "That man's dangerous." "I told you." "No. You told me he was patient. You didn't tell me he was smart." Clara's voice was tight. "He wasn't just greeting me, Caleb. He was measuring me, figuring out if I'm a weakness he can use." "Are you—" Clara turned to look at him. "What do you think?" "I think you're the opposite of a weakness, and I think that scares him more than if you were." Something passed between them. Quick. Electric. Gone. "There was a woman watching us," Clara said. "Across the street. Blonde. Pretty. Looked like she wanted to set me on fire with her eyes." "Emmy Graves. Widow. Her husband died 2 years back. She got feelings for you." Caleb's jaw tightened. "She's got feelings for the idea of me. The ranch. The security. We ain't the same thing." "Does she know that—" "She should." Clara was quiet for a moment. Women like that, they don't give up easy, especially when someone new shows up and threatens what they've been planning. "You worried about her?" "I'm worried about what she might say to people. Rumors spread faster than fire out here, and rumors about a woman—" Clara's voice trailed off. "They can destroy more than flames ever could." When they got back to the ranch, Tom Running Wolf was waiting on the porch. He stood when they pulled up. 40 years old, lean, weathered, with eyes that saw everything and a mouth that said half of what he knew. "Caleb." Tom nodded, then his gaze moved to Clara. "Ma'am?" "Clara Weston." She climbed down without waiting for help. "You're the one who wrote his letters." Tom's expression didn't change. "He told you." "I figured it out. First day." "She notices things," Caleb said, climbing down beside her. "I can see that." Tom studied Clara for a long moment. Something shifted in his eyes. Respect, maybe, or recognition. "You're not what I expected." "Nobody ever expects me. That's my advantage." Tom almost smiled. Almost. "I came to warn you, Caleb. Blackwood's lawyer man named Prescott has been asking questions at the land office in Cheyenne. Looking at surveys. Property records." "Looking for what?" "Gaps, mistakes, anything he can use to file competing claims on your land." Clara's voice cut in sharp. "What kind of surveys?" Both men looked at her. "My daddy fought a land grab back in Missouri. The mining company filed backdated surveys to prove his property lines were wrong. It's an old trick. Create a paper dispute. Tie the real owner up in legal fees until they can't afford to fight." Tom's eyebrows rose. He looked at Caleb. Caleb nodded once. "That's exactly what we're thinking," Tom said. "Prescott's been filing documents for 6 months now. Survey after survey, all of them showing property lines that favor Blackwood's interests." "Then we need to see those surveys," Clara said. "Every one of them. If there's a pattern of fraud, it'll show." "You think you can find it?" "I found my daddy's in 3 days, and his was buried under 6 years of county filings by a clerk who'd been paid to lose it." Clara's voice went flat. "I know how these men work. They count on us being too tired, too poor, or too unlettered to look at the paperwork. They count wrong." The word unlettered hung in the air. Clara didn't look at Caleb when she said it. Didn't need to. She was telling Tom without telling him that she knew about Caleb's secret, and that it didn't matter. Tom understood. His eyes moved from Clara to Caleb and back. "I'll ride to Cheyenne tomorrow," Tom said. "See what I can dig up at the land office." "I'll go with you," Clara said. Clara, Caleb started. Don't. She held up a hand. If Blackwood's people are manipulating records, I need to see those documents myself. I know what to look for. You don't. The truth of it stung. Caleb couldn't read, couldn't examine legal documents, couldn't compare surveys or spot forged dates. Clara could, and they all knew it. Fine, Caleb said. But Tom goes with you. I was planning to anyway. Tom mounted his horse. I'll be here at first light. He rode off toward the eastern ridge. That night, Clara sat by the fire with a piece of charcoal and a flat board scratching out numbers and figures Caleb couldn't follow. What are you doing? Making a list. Everything you've lost in the last 2 years. Cattle, equipment, time. She looked up. If we're going to prove Blackwood's been stealing from you, we need to know exactly what's missing. I don't keep records. I know. That's why we're starting now. She tapped the board. Tell me everything you remember. Every animal that disappeared. Every fence that fell. Every supply shipment that never arrived. They talked for 2 hours. Clara asked questions Caleb hadn't thought to ask himself. Dates, numbers, patterns. By the end, she had 3 boards filled with figures. You've lost close to 40 head in 2 years, Clara said quietly. Plus equipment, plus time, plus the money you've spent trying to keep up with damage you didn't cause. How much? If I had to put a dollar figure on it, Clara set down the charcoal. Enough to have hired 2 hands for those 2 years. Enough to have fixed your barn and your fences and your water system. Enough to have turned this place into something that could actually thrive instead of just survive. Caleb stared at the numbers he couldn't read. Blackwood didn't just want your land, Clara said. He's been bleeding you dry first, making you weak, making you desperate. So when he finally moves in for the kill, you won't have anything left to fight with. And now? Clara met his eyes. Now you've got me. They sat in silence for a long moment. The fire crackled. Outside, a coyote howled, and another answered. That letter, Caleb said finally. The one you were reading the other night. The one that made you cry. Clara went still. I wasn't spying. I woke up. Saw you. He paused. You don't have to tell me. But if you're carrying something heavy, you don't have to carry it alone. Clara was quiet for so long that Caleb thought she wouldn't answer. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out the folded paper. Her name's Nell, Clara said. Her voice cracked. She's 16. She's my sister. Your sister. After Daddy died, I couldn't keep us both. The forge went to creditors. The house went to the bank. I had nothing. Clara's hands trembled. Our aunt took Nell in, said she'd care for her, said I could go make my way and come back when I had something to offer. But our aunt isn't caring for her. She's using her, working her like a servant. And now, Clara's voice broke. Now she's planning to marry Nell off to a man 3 times her age, a business partner, someone who's willing to pay for a young wife. Caleb's blood went cold. She's 16. She's property to them, that's all. Tears ran down Clara's face. I've been sending money when I can, trying to save enough to get her out. But it's never enough. It's never fast enough. Why didn't you tell me? Because this is your problem, Blackwood, the ranch. I came here to help you, not to burden you with my... Your sister isn't a burden. Caleb's voice came out rough. Family isn't a burden. Clara looked at him. Really looked. You mean that? I had a brother once. I know what it means to want to protect someone, even when you can't, even when they betray you. He paused. Nell hasn't betrayed you. She's just trapped. Same as you were before you got on that stage. I need to get her out, Caleb. Before August. That's when the wedding's planned. August. Caleb did the math. That's 6 weeks. 6 weeks to save enough money to buy her passage here. 6 weeks to prove I can give her a home. 6 weeks to—" Clara stopped, shook her head. "I shouldn't have told you this. It's not your problem." "Clara." Caleb reached out, took her hand. Her fingers were rough, strong, trembling. "We'll figure it out. Together. But first we deal with Blackwood. We secure this ranch, and then we bring your sister home. You don't even know her. I know you. That's enough." Something broke open in Clara's face. Not her composure. Something underneath. Something she'd been holding tight since Missouri. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you do this for me?" "Because you fixed my water pump. Because you saw my shame and didn't flinch. Because you're the first person in 5 years who's looked at me like I'm worth the effort of honesty." Caleb squeezed her hand. "And because alone isn't strength, Clara. It's just slow surrender. Your daddy knew that. And I'm starting to." Clara didn't speak. Couldn't. She just held his hand and let the tears fall. Outside, the summer night pressed close and warm. Somewhere in the darkness, hooves pounded the earth. Fast. Urgent. Caleb was on his feet before he could think, his rifle in his hands. Tom's horse burst into the clearing, riderless, wild-eyed flanks lathered with sweat. And tied to the saddle, a note. Clara grabbed it. "Read it." "Caleb?" Her voice was ice. "They've taken him." "What?" "It says—" Clara's hands shook. "Mind your own business or your friend dies. Stay out of Cheyenne. This is your only warning." Caleb stared at the note he couldn't read. At the horse that had come home without its rider. At the woman who'd brought war to his doorstep just by being brave enough to fight. And somewhere in the darkness, Tom Running Wolf was bleeding. Caleb grabbed the horse's reins. The animal was shaking, foam dripping from its mouth. Whatever happened to Tom, the horse had run hard to get away from it. "We have to go after him," Caleb said. "That's exactly what they want." Clara's voice was steady, but her hands were still trembling around the note. "They're expecting you to ride out blind in the dark. They'll be waiting. I can't leave him out there. And you can't save him if you're dead." Clara stepped in front of him. "Think, Caleb. Tom's smart. He survived worse than Blackwood's hired thugs. If they wanted him dead, they wouldn't have sent a warning. They would have sent his body." The words hit like cold water. "They're using him," Clara continued, "as bait, as leverage. They want you scared and stupid. Don't give them what they want." "So what do we do?" "Sit here and wait." "No, we go at first light, armed, together, and we don't go where they expect us to go." "Where do we go?" Clara's jaw tightened. "The one place Blackwood thinks we're too scared to touch. His office. His records. If Tom was headed to Cheyenne to look at land surveys, then Blackwood's got copies too. Somewhere." "You want to break into the magistrate's office?" "I want to find proof that he's a thief and a fraud before he kills your friend." Clara grabbed his arm. "Caleb, listen to me. Men like Blackwood, they keep records. They have to. They're too careful not to. Somewhere in that office there's paper that proves what he's been doing. And paper is the one weapon they can't fight with guns." Caleb stared at her. This woman who'd been on his ranch for less than 2 weeks. This woman who'd fixed his water pump and called out his shame and cried over a letter from a sister she couldn't save. "You're crazy," he said. "Probably." Clara didn't blink. "You coming or not?" They didn't sleep. Couldn't. Clara spent the dark hours going through everything Tom had told them. Every name, every date. Every property Blackwood had acquired in the last 3 years. 7 ranches, she said as the sky started to lighten. 7 families pushed out. And look at the pattern. She pointed at the marks she'd made on her boards. Every single one of them bordered water. Creeks, springs, wells. Blackwood's not just buying land. He's buying control of every water source in the valley. Why? Railroads coming. Whoever controls the water controls where the trains can stop, where the towns can grow. Clara's voice went hard. He's not just getting rich, he's building an empire, and everyone who wouldn't sell is in his way. Including me. Especially you. Your ranch sits right on the fork of Miller Creek, best water access in the territory. Clara met his eyes. You're not just an obstacle, Caleb. You're the prize. The sun came up hot and angry. They rode into town separately. Caleb's first wagon loaded with empty crates like he was making a supply run. Clara waited an hour, then came on foot, slipping through the back streets like she belonged there. They met behind the church. Reverend Abel Cross was waiting for them. Tom's alive, Cross said without preamble. I saw them take him past my window last night. 3 men, headed toward the old mill outside town. The mill? Caleb frowned. That place has been abandoned for years, which makes it perfect for holding a man you don't want found. Cross pulled a key from his pocket. This opens the back door of Blackwood's office. I've been waiting 3 years for someone brave enough to use it. Clara took the key. How do you have this? Because I've been watching him longer than anyone, and because I know what he did to the family that owned this church before I came. Cross's weathered face went dark. The Hendersons. Good people. Blackwood wanted their land for the bank. They wouldn't sell. 6 months later, their barn burned down. Their cattle got sick. Their well went dry. What happened to them? The husband hung himself in that barn. Cross's voice cracked. The wife took the children and left. Blackwood bought the land for pennies. He looked at Caleb. That's not going to happen to you. Not while I'm breathing. Clara gripped the key. We need a distraction, something to keep Blackwood away from his office long enough for me to search. I can give you 20 minutes, Cross said. There's a council meeting this afternoon. I'll make sure it runs long. How? By accusing him of fraud in front of the whole town. Caleb's head snapped up. That'll get you killed. I'm dying anyway. Consumption. Cross smiled grimly. Doctor gives me 6 months, maybe less. I'd rather go out fighting than coughing. He put his hand on Caleb's shoulder. Get the proof. Make it count. That's all I ask. 2 hours later, Clara slipped through the back door of Blackwood's office, while the sound of raised voices carried from the meeting hall down the street. The office was dark. Quiet. She moved fast, checking drawers, shelves, locked cabinets. Most of it was useless contracts, receipts, correspondence about mundane town business. Then she found the box. Hidden behind a false panel in the wall. Metal. Locked. Heavy. Clara pulled out her father's tools. The lock was good. She was better. Inside were papers. Dozens of them. Surveys with dates that didn't match. Deeds with signatures that looked forced. Letters between Blackwood and a man named Prescott detailing exactly which property lines to adjust and how much to pay the surveyor to lie. And at the bottom, a list. 7 names. 7 ranches. 7 amounts paid to make problems disappear. Caleb's name was at the bottom. Next to it a notation, final acquisition, by September or eliminate. Clara's blood went cold. She photographed each document in her mind. Memorized dates, numbers, names. Then she put everything back exactly as she'd found it and slipped out the way she came. Cross was still talking when she reached the back of the meeting hall. His voice carried through the open windows. I'm asking this council to open an investigation into the land acquisitions made by the Montana Land and Timber Company over the past 3 years. I'm asking because I have reason to believe those acquisitions were obtained through fraud, intimidation, and worse. Blackwood's voice cut through the murmur of the crowd. Smooth. Controlled. Reverend Cross, these are serious accusations. I assume you have evidence to support them. I have the testimony of 7 families who lost everything they owned. I have death certificates that tell suspicious stories. And I have the word of a good man sitting in a jail cell right now for the crime of asking questions. The room went silent. What man? Someone called out. Thomas Running Wolf, arrested last night by men claiming to be deputies, held without charge, without counsel, without anyone knowing where he is. The murmur became a roar. Clara slipped out of town before anyone noticed she was there. She found Caleb waiting at the crossroads, his rifle across his lap. "Did you find it?" "Everything." Clara climbed onto the wagon. "Dates, names, amounts. Enough to put Blackwood in prison for the rest of his life." "Where is it?" Clara tapped her temple. "Here. All of it. I couldn't take the papers, he'd know someone was there. But I remember every word." "You memorized it all." "My mother was a teacher. She trained my memory before she trained my hands." Clara's voice shook slightly. "Caleb, there's something else. In those papers. Your name." "What about it?" "He's not just trying to buy your ranch. He's planning to eliminate you. By September." Those were his exact words. Caleb's hands tightened on the reins. "Then we don't have much time." "No, we don't." They rode hard toward the old mill. The building rose out of the prairie like a broken tooth. No movement, no sound. "Could be a trap," Clara said. "Probably is." Caleb checked his rifle. "Stay here." "No." "Clara." "I said no." She pulled a small pistol from her bag. "My daddy taught me more than blacksmithing." They approached together, side by side. The mill door hung loose on its hinges. Inside, dust and shadows, and the smell of old grain and something else. Something copper sharp. Blood. Tom was tied to a post in the center of the room. His face was swollen. One eye shut. Blood crusted on his lip. But he was breathing. "Tom!" Caleb cut the ropes. "Tom, can you hear me?" Tom's good eye opened, focused. "Caleb, thank God." His voice came out rough. "They wanted to know what I was looking for, what you were planning." "What did you tell them?" "Nothing. Told them I was just riding through. Don't think they believed me." "Can you walk?" "I can try." Clara helped support his other side. Together they got him outside into the light. "We need to get him to a doctor," Clara said. "Doc Mercer's the only one in town. He's a drunk, but he's honest." "Then we go to him." They were halfway back to town when the riders appeared. 4 of them, coming fast from the east. "Caleb." Clara's voice was ice. "That's not Blackwood's men." "How do you know?" "Because that's the sheriff, and he's got deputies." Sheriff Bo Hartley pulled up in front of them. His face was grim. His hand was on his gun. "Caleb Stone, you're under arrest for assault and kidnapping." "What?" "Vernon Blackwood says you attacked him during the council meeting, took documents from his office, kidnapped a territorial marshal he'd sent to investigate." Clara stepped forward. "That's a lie. We've been nowhere near—" "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back." Hartley's voice was tired, resigned. "I'm just following orders." "Whose orders? Blackwood's?" Hartley didn't answer, but his eyes flickered with something that looked almost like shame. "Bo." Caleb's voice was quiet. "You know me. You know I didn't do any of this." "I know what I've been told." Hartley's hand stayed on his gun. "And I know what happens to lawmen who don't do what Vernon Blackwood wants. I've got a wife, kids. I can't—" He stopped, swallowed. "I'm sorry, Caleb. I truly am." "If you take him in, he won't survive the night," Clara said. "You know that." "That's not my concern." "It should be. Because when this is over, and it will be over, people are going to remember who stood with Blackwood and who stood against him. They're going to remember which side you chose." Hartley's face tightened. "I don't have a choice." "Everyone has a choice." Clara's voice dropped. "My daddy used to say that the only thing a man truly owns is his decisions. Everything else can be taken. But no one can force you to betray your own conscience. You have to do that yourself." The words hung in the air. Hartley's hand trembled on his gun. Then a voice rang out from behind them. "Sheriff Hartley, I believe you're making a mistake." Widow Martha Brennan rode toward them, her back straight, her eyes blazing. Behind her came Isaiah Webb, and Collins, and Patterson, 6 ranchers in total, all armed. "This man is a member of our community," Martha said. "So is Tom Running Wolf. If you want to arrest them, you'll have to arrest all of us." "Ma'am, this isn't your concern. When an honest man gets railroaded by a crook, it's everyone's concern." Martha pulled up beside Caleb. "I've lived in this territory for 30 years. I watched Vernon Blackwood destroy 7 families. I stayed quiet because I was scared. I ain't scared anymore." Webb nodded. "Neither am I." "Me neither," Patterson said. One by one the ranchers spoke. 6 voices. 6 refusals to let injustice stand. Hartley looked at them. Looked at his deputies. Looked at the ground. "I'm going to ride back to town," he said finally. "I'm going to tell Blackwood I couldn't find you, that you'd already left the territory." He met Caleb's eyes. "You've got maybe 3 hours before he sends someone else. Someone who won't hesitate." "Bo, don't thank me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it because my daddy raised me better than this." Hartley turned his horse. 3 hours. Make them count. He rode away. His deputies followed. Martha exhaled. That was close. Too close. Clara's voice was shaking now, the fear she'd been holding back finally breaking through. "We can't run. Running means he wins." "Then what do we do?" Clara looked at the ranchers gathered around them. Scared people. Tired people. People who'd been beaten down for years by a man who thought money and power made him invincible. "We fight," Clara said. "All of us. Together." "How?" Webb asked. "I've got evidence in my head that will put Blackwood in prison. But evidence means nothing without a court willing to hear it. We need to get word to the federal marshal in Cheyenne. We need to request a formal investigation. And we need to make sure Blackwood can't destroy the proof before it reaches the right hands." "The territorial judge is in his pocket," Patterson said. "Then we go over his head. Federal authority supersedes territorial." Clara's mind was racing. "There's a telegraph office in Millbrook 30 miles west. Blackwood doesn't control it. You want to telegraph the federal marshal? I want to send a message that can't be intercepted, can't be bought, can't be silenced." Clara grabbed Caleb's arm. "But I can't do it alone. Someone needs to stay here and protect Tom. Someone needs to watch Blackwood. And someone needs to ride with me in case we're followed." "I'll ride with you," Caleb said. "You can't. You're the one he wants most. If you leave, he'll use that against you. Say you fled. Say you admitted guilt." "Then who—" Clara looked at the ranchers. Her eyes landed on the youngest, a woman barely older than herself, Martha's daughter, armed with a rifle and a determination that matched her mother's. "What's your name?" "Ruth. Ruth Brennan." "Ruth, can you ride fast and shoot straight?" "Faster than most men, straighter than all of them." "Then you're coming with me." Clara turned to Caleb. "Stay here. Protect Tom. Gather everyone who's willing to stand with us. When I get back, we end this." Caleb grabbed her hand. "Clara." "What?" "Come back to me." Something broke open in Clara's face. Not her composure, not her courage. Something softer. Something she'd been protecting. "I always keep my promises, Caleb. Remember?" She kissed him. Quick. Hard. Real. Then she was on a horse riding west with Ruth beside her. Caleb watched her disappear over the ridge and felt something he hadn't felt since before the war. Fear. Not of death. Not of pain. Fear of losing something worth living for. 3 hours passed. Then 4. Then 5. No word from Clara. No sign of Blackwood's men. Just silence. And waiting. And the slow poison of uncertainty. Tom was resting in Martha's barn. Doc Mercer working on his wounds with steadier hands than anyone expected. The old drunk had poured out his bottle when he heard what was happening. "Some things matter more than whiskey," he'd said. "This is one of them." The ranchers kept watch in shifts. Caleb couldn't rest, couldn't eat, couldn't stop staring at the western horizon. Then, as the sun started to sink, a rider appeared. Not Clara, not Ruth, Emmy Graves. She rode up wild-eyed, her dress torn, her hair loose. "Caleb," she was gasping for breath. "They know. Blackwood knows where Clara went. He sent men after her. 6 of them. Armed." Caleb's blood turned to ice. "How do you know?" "Because I was there, in his office. I heard him give the order." Emmy's voice broke. "I've been a fool, Caleb. I thought he cared about me. I thought if I helped him, he'd—" She shook her head. "It doesn't matter. What matters is that Clara's riding into an ambush. They're going to kill her before she reaches Millbrook." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I'm not a murderer." Tears ran down Emmy's face. "I wanted you, Caleb. I wanted this ranch and this life and everything that should have been mine. But not like this. Not with blood." Caleb was already moving toward his horse. "Caleb." Emmy grabbed his arm. "There's something else. Something I heard them say." "What?" "They know about her sister, about Nell. Blackwood sent a message to someone in Missouri." Emmy's voice dropped. "He's going to have her taken, as leverage, in case Clara survives." The world went red at the edges. Clara was riding into an ambush. Her sister was about to be kidnapped, and Caleb couldn't save them both. He looked at the ranchers gathered around him, at Tom barely able to stand but reaching for his rifle anyway, at Emmy shaking with the weight of her betrayal, at the western horizon where somewhere Clara was fighting for her life. "I need help," Caleb said. "I can't do this alone." Webb stepped forward. "You're not alone." Patterson, Collins, Martha. One by one they moved. "Tom." Caleb turned to his friend. "Can you get word to Missouri? Can you reach someone who can protect Nell?" "I know a man in Kansas, former marshal, owes me his life." Tom's voice was weak but steady. "If anyone can get to that girl in time, it's him." "Do it." Tom nodded, started moving toward the telegraph in Martha's store. "The rest of you." Caleb swung onto his horse. "We ride west, fast, and we pray we're not too late." 6 horses thundered toward the horizon, and somewhere in the fading light, Clara Weston was fighting for everything she loved. Clara heard the riders before she saw them. Hooves pounding the hard earth, coming fast from the north. Too many to be friendly. "Ruth," Clara's voice was tight. "We've got company." Ruth looked back. Her face went pale. 6 of them, maybe more. "Can we outrun them?" "Not a chance. Their horses are fresher." Clara's mind raced. Millbrook was still 10 miles away. 10 miles of open prairie with nowhere to hide. Nowhere to make a stand. "There." Ruth pointed toward a rocky outcrop to the south. "If we can reach those rocks, we can hold them off." "For how long?" "Long enough to matter." They turned hard. The horses screamed with effort. Behind them, the riders adjusted course, gaining with every stride. Clara's lungs burned. Her hands ached from gripping the reins. But she didn't slow. Couldn't slow. They hit the rocks just as the first shot rang out. The bullet sparked off stone inches from Clara's head. She threw herself from the saddle, grabbed her pistol, and pressed her back against the largest boulder. Ruth was beside her rifle, already up and aimed. "How many rounds you got?" Clara asked. 12. "You won, 6 in the gun, 6 more in my pocket." 24 rounds, 6 men. Ruth almost smiled. "I've had worse odds." The riders stopped 50 yards out, spread in a line, waiting. "Clara Weston," a voice carried across the distance. "Mr. Blackwood sends his regards, says you've got something that belongs to him." "I've got nothing but the truth." Clara's voice didn't waver. "And that doesn't belong to anyone. Come out peaceful and maybe you live. Make us come in there and we'll make it slow." Ruth raised her rifle. "I can drop 2 of them before they move." "Wait." Clara put her hand on Ruth's arm. "If we start shooting, they'll rush us. We need time." "Time for what?" "For help to arrive." Clara's jaw tightened. Caleb knows where I was headed. When I don't show up in Millbrook, he'll come looking. That could be hours? Then we hold for hours. The standoff stretched. Minutes that felt like years. The sun beat down merciless and hot. Sweat ran into Clara's eyes, stinging. Her hands cramped around the pistol grip. "They're moving," Ruth whispered. 2 men had dismounted, started circling left, trying to flank. "I see them." Clara shifted position. "Cover the right. I'll take the left." "Clara, if this goes bad..." "It won't." "But if it does..." Ruth's voice cracked. "My mother. Tell her I didn't run. Tell her I stood." "You can tell her yourself. When this is over." The flanking men got closer. 20 yards, 15. Clara steadied her breathing, remembered her father's voice. "Don't shoot until you can see their eyes, then don't miss." 10 yards. She saw his eyes, cold, flat, the eyes of a man who'd done this before. Clara fired. The man went down. His partner turned, raised his gun, and Ruth's rifle cracked. He spun and fell. 4 left. The others charged. Everything became noise and dust and chaos. Clara fired until her pistol clicked empty. Reloaded with shaking hands. Fired again. Ruth was a demon beside her, working the rifle with a speed that seemed impossible. 2 more men fell. Then Ruth screamed. Clara turned, saw Ruth clutching her shoulder, blood spreading through her fingers. "Ruth." "I'm all right." Ruth's voice was thin. "Just a graze. Keep shooting." The last 2 attackers had taken cover. Bullets ricocheted off stone, throwing chips into the air. Clara pressed herself flat, tried to make herself small. "We can't hold much longer." Ruth gasped. "We have to." "Clara, there's too many. We need to..." A sound cut through the gunfire. Hooves, many hooves, coming from the east. Clara risked a look. Her heart stopped. Caleb, Webb, Patterson, Collins. 6 riders bearing down like cavalry. The remaining attackers saw them too. One of them bolted for his horse. The other raised his hands. "Don't shoot!" The man threw down his weapon. "I surrender! I surrender!" Caleb reached Clara first. He was off his horse before it stopped moving, pulling her into his arms with a desperation that took her breath away. "You're alive!" His voice broke. "Thank God! Thank God! I'm all right." Clara gripped him back. "Caleb, I'm all right. I thought I lost you. You can't lose me that easy." Behind them, Ruth had slumped against the rock. Doc Mercer, who had apparently followed despite orders, was already examining her wound. "Clean through the muscle," Mercer said. "She'll hurt like hell for a month, but she'll live." "Told you," Ruth managed. "Just a graze." Clara pulled back from Caleb. Her mind was already moving past the relief, past the joy of survival, back to what mattered. "The telegraph," she said. "We still need to get word to the federal marshal." "Already done." Caleb's voice was grim. "Tom sent a message before we left, and he sent another one, to a man in Kansas." "About Nell." Caleb nodded. "His name's John Redfeather, former marshal. Tom says if anyone can get to your sister in time, it's him." Clara's knees went weak. "In time for what?" "Blackwood knows about her. He sent men to Missouri, to take her as leverage." The world tilted. Clara grabbed Caleb's arm to steady herself. "No." Her voice was a whisper. "No, no, no. Tom's man is good, the best. If he got the message in time..." "If." Clara's voice cracked. "If isn't good enough. If doesn't save my sister." "Clara, I have to go." She turned toward her horse. "I have to get to Missouri. I have to..." Caleb caught her arm. "You go now. You're riding into a trap. Blackwood wants you scared, wants you running. That's when he'll catch you." "I don't care." "Your sister does." Caleb's grip tightened. "Think. If you die on the road to Missouri, who's going to fight for her? who's going to make sure Blackwood pays for what he's done. Clara's whole body was shaking. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to ride, to get to Nell before it was too late. But Caleb was right, and she knew it. "What do we do?" Her voice was barely audible. "We finish what we started, here, now." Caleb's eyes were fierce. "We take down Blackwood and his whole operation crumbles, including whatever he's planned for Nell." "How?" "The same way you planned from the beginning. Public exposure, federal authority." Caleb turned to the captured man still on his knees with his hands raised. "And a witness who's suddenly very motivated to talk." The man's name was Grady. He'd worked for Blackwood for 3 years. Done things he wasn't proud of. Been paid well to forget about conscience. But staring down the barrel of Webb's rifle, his memory got remarkably clear. "Blackwood's got a meeting tonight," Grady said. His voice trembled. "At the bank, with Prescott and the railroad men. They're finalizing the land deals, all the properties they've stolen. Everything goes official at midnight." "What happens at midnight?" Clara demanded. "The papers get filed in Cheyenne. Once they're recorded, it's done, legal. Nobody can challenge it. Then we stop it before midnight." "You can't." Grady shook his head. "Blackwood's got men everywhere. The sheriff, the deputies. Half the town owes him money. You walk in there, you're dead before you reach the door." "Then we don't walk in." Clara's mind was racing. "We bring the town to him." Patterson stepped forward. "What are you thinking, girl? Every rancher Blackwood has hurt. Every family he's destroyed. They all know pieces of the truth, but they've never heard each other's stories. They've never seen the whole picture. So we show them. Tonight, before midnight, we gather everyone who's willing to listen, and we tell them exactly what Blackwood has done." Clara looked at the ranchers around her. "Not just to you, to everyone. 7 families, 7 ranches, 7 lives destroyed by one man's greed." "The bank's got locked doors," Webb said. "Armed guards." "The bank can be locked. The streets can't." Clara's voice hardened. "We hold the meeting outside, right in front of his office. Let him try to stop a crowd of his own neighbors from hearing the truth. He will try. Then we make sure there are more of us than there are of him." They rode back to town as the sun started to sink. Word spread fast. Martha Brennan moved through the streets like a general marshaling troops, knocking on doors, whispering into ears, calling in every favor she'd accumulated in 30 years. "There's going to be a reckoning tonight," she told people. "You want justice, you show up. You don't, you stay home and live with yourself." Most showed up. By the time the sun touched the horizon, 50 people had gathered in front of Blackwood's bank. Ranchers, shopkeepers, widows, children, the whole fabric of a community that had been stretched and torn by one man's ambition. Blackwood appeared on the bank steps as darkness fell. His face was calm, his eyes were poison. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, "this is private property. I'm going to have to ask you all to disperse." "We're not on your property, Vernon." Martha stood at the front of the crowd. "We're on a public street, and we've got something to say. Whatever grievances you have can be addressed through proper legal channels. This mob behavior is—" "It's not a mob." Clara stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "It's a community, something you've been trying to destroy for years. Miss Weston." Blackwood's smile was ice. "I'm surprised you're still in the territory. I heard you had an accident on the road. Your men are either dead or in custody. Your hired gun is singing like a bird." Clara met his stare. "It's over, Blackwood. Tonight these people are going to hear the truth." "The truth?" Blackwood laughed. "What truth? The ramblings of a mail-order bride and a half-literate rancher." The insult hung in the air. Clara felt Caleb go rigid beside her. "I may not read well," Caleb said quietly, "but I know what honest looks like, and I know what it doesn't. Mr. Stone, you have nothing, no evidence, no legal standing, nothing but rumors and resentment. I have this." Clara pulled a folded paper from her coat. "A sworn statement from Jacob Grady, employee of Vernon Blackwood for 3 years. detailing every fraudulent survey, every forged document, every bribe paid to territorial officials. Blackwood's face flickered, just for a moment. That's meaningless. The word of a criminal against a respected, and this. Clara pulled another paper, a telegram from the federal marshal's office in Denver, confirming that an investigation has been opened into the Montana Land and Timber Company. Effective immediately. The crowd murmured. Blackwood's composure cracked further. You're bluffing. Try me. A rider appeared at the edge of the crowd. Tom Running Wolf, his face still bruised, his arm in a sling. He pushed through to Clara's side and handed her a third piece of paper. Just arrived, Tom said. From Kansas. Clara read it. Her hands started shaking. Nell, she whispered. They got to her. Caleb grabbed her arm. What does it say? John Redfeather intercepted Blackwood's men at the Missouri border. Nell's safe. She's with federal authorities. Clara's voice broke. She's asking for me. The crowd erupted. People who'd been afraid for years suddenly weren't. The dam broke. 3 years ago, Vernon Blackwood bought my land for half what it was worth. An old man pushed forward. Said the bank would foreclose if I didn't sell. Said there was nothing I could do. He did the same to me, a woman called out. And when my husband tried to fight it, he had an accident on the road. Never walked again. My family lost everything. He burned my barn. He poisoned my well. One by one they spoke. 7 families became 12. 12 became 20. Stories that had festered in silence for years finally pouring out into the open. Blackwood backed toward the bank door. His guards looked uncertain. The power that had protected him for so long was evaporating in real time. This is slander, Blackwood shouted. Every one of you will face legal consequences. The only one facing consequences is you. Sheriff Hartley stepped through the crowd. His badge caught the light from the torches. Vernon Blackwood, I have a warrant from the federal marshal's office for your arrest on charges of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted murder. You can't do this. I can, and I am. Hartley pulled out handcuffs. You can come quiet, or you can make this hard. I'm hoping you make it hard. Blackwood's eyes darted to his guards, to the crowd, to the street beyond, looking for escape, finding none. You'll regret this, he hissed at Clara. All of you. I have friends in Washington. I have money. You have nothing. Clara stepped close to him, close enough to see the fear finally breaking through his mask. You spent so long thinking you were untouchable that you forgot something important. What? That people are only afraid as long as they're alone. And tonight, nobody's alone. Hartley snapped the cuffs on Blackwood's wrists. The sound echoed through the silent street like a thunderclap. Get him out of here, Hartley said. The deputies led Blackwood away. The crowd watched in silence until he disappeared around the corner. Then the cheering started. Clara felt arms around her. Martha, Ruth, her shoulder bandaged, but her spirit unbroken. The ranchers who'd risked everything to stand in that street, and Caleb, always Caleb. You did it, he said in her ear. We did it. Clara. He pulled back to look at her face. Marry me. The question hit her like a wave. Here, now, in the middle of a crowd with torchlight flickering and people cheering, and the dust of battle still settling. Caleb, I know, bad timing, worse setting, but I almost lost you today, twice. His voice cracked. I spent 5 years building walls to keep people out. Took you 2 weeks to tear them all down. I don't want to rebuild them. I don't want to go back to being alone. I can't, not yet. His face fell. I understand. No, you don't. Clara grabbed his hands. I can't because I have to go to Missouri. My sister needs me. She's been waiting for me for 2 years and I can't make her wait anymore. Then I'll wait. Caleb. I've waited 5 years for someone like you. I can wait a few more weeks. He squeezed her hands. Go get your sister. Bring her home. And when you're both standing on my porch, ask me again. Ask you what? If I still want to marry you. Caleb almost smiled. The answer will be the same. Clara kissed him, long and deep, with the whole town watching and the stars coming out overhead. 3 weeks, she said when they finally broke apart. Give me 3 weeks. Take as long as you need. 3 weeks, Clara repeated. And then I'm coming home. She left at dawn. Tom rode with her as far as the Kansas border, where John Redfeather was waiting with a wagon and a young girl with honey-colored hair and eyes that matched Clara's exactly. Nell. Clara was off her horse before it stopped. Nell, I'm here. I'm finally here. I knew you'd come. Nell's voice was thick with tears. I knew you wouldn't forget me. Never. Clara held her sister tight. Never, never, never. They stayed like that for a long time. Two sisters reunited after 2 years of letters and worry and the constant grinding fear that they'd never see each other again. Clara. Nell pulled back. There's something I need to tell you. What? Aunt Meredith. She didn't just want to marry me off for money. Nell's voice dropped. She was selling me. Actually, selling me. To a man who... She couldn't finish. Clara's blood went cold. What man? His name was Blackwood. Vernon Blackwood. He had contacts in Missouri. He was building some kind of network. Women, girls. For the mining camps out west. The world tilted. Clara grabbed the wagon wheel to steady herself. It wasn't just land. It wasn't just money. Blackwood had been trafficking women, using his money and power to buy girls like livestock and ship them to places where no one would look for them. And Nell had almost been one of them. He's in custody, Clara said. Her voice was shaking. He's going to prison. For land fraud. For everything. Clara's jaw set. I'm going to make sure they know. All of it. Every crime. Every victim. She looked at her sister. Including you. I'm not a victim. No. Clara touched Nell's face. You're a survivor, same as me. They traveled back to Wyoming together. 3 weeks exactly, just like Clara had promised. When the wagon crested the final ridge and the ranch came into view, Caleb was standing on the porch, waiting. Like he'd been standing there the whole time she was gone. Clara climbed down from the wagon, walked toward him, stopped at the bottom of the steps. I brought her home, Clara said. I see that. She's staying, with us. I figured. Clara climbed the steps, stood in front of him, close enough to see the new lines around his eyes, the weight he'd been carrying in her absence. Ask me, she said. Ask you what? You know what. Caleb's face softened. He took her hands. Clara Weston, will you marry me? Yes. Clara smiled. 1,000 times yes. Behind them, Nell was already exploring the barn, asking Tom questions about the horses, laughing at something he said. Home, Clara thought. After everything. Finally home. The wedding happened on a Sunday morning 3 weeks after Clara said yes. Simple, small, perfect. Reverend Cross performed the ceremony on the porch of the Stone Ranch. His voice was weaker than it had been. The consumption was taking its toll, but his words carried the weight of a man who knew exactly how precious time was. Marriage isn't a feeling, Cross said, looking at Caleb and Clara standing hand in hand. It's not a promise made once and forgotten. It's a choice you make every single day. To stay, to fight, to show up even when showing up is the hardest thing in the world. Clara squeezed Caleb's hand. His grip tightened back. Do you, Caleb Josiah Stone, take this woman to be your wife? I do. No hesitation. No doubt. Do you, Clara May Weston, take this man to be your husband? I do. Cross smiled. Then by the authority vested in me by God and the territory of Wyoming, I pronounce you husband and wife. He paused. You may kiss your bride, Caleb, though I suspect you don't need my permission. Caleb kissed her. The small crowd cheered. Nell cried. Tom pretended he wasn't crying. Martha Brennan handed out pieces of cake she'd baked herself. Not bad for a woman who can't cook, Martha muttered. Don't tell anyone I practiced for a week. The celebration lasted until sunset. Then one by one the guests drifted home, leaving Caleb and Clara alone on the porch. Mrs. Stone. Caleb tried the name out. That's going to take some getting used to. You've got time. Clara leaned against him. We both do. Do we? Something shifted in Caleb's voice. Clara, there's something I need to tell you. What? Blackwood. The federal prosecutor sent word this morning. Caleb's jaw tightened. He's talking, making deals, naming names. Clara went still. What kind of names? Everyone who helped him, every official he bribed, every crime he committed. Caleb paused. Including the trafficking network Nell told you about. That's good, isn't it? It is. But there's more. Caleb turned to face her. He named someone in Missouri, your aunt. Clara's blood went cold. Meredith? She wasn't just planning to sell Nell to Blackwood's people. She's been part of the network for years, finding girls, preparing them. Caleb's voice dropped. The federal marshals arrested her 2 days ago. Clara sat down hard on the porch step. Her hands were shaking. She was family, Clara whispered. She was supposed to protect Nell. She was a monster hiding behind a familiar face. Caleb sat beside her. But she's done now. Can't hurt anyone else. Nell doesn't know. She doesn't have to. Not yet. Not until she's ready. Clara looked toward the barn where Nell was helping Tom with the horses, laughing at something he said, looking happier than Clara had seen her in years. She's going to find out eventually. Then she'll find out with you beside her. Caleb took Clara's hand. She's not alone anymore. Neither of us are. The days turned into weeks. Summer burned hot and relentless, but the work never stopped. Clara threw herself into rebuilding what Blackwood had tried to destroy. The barn got new walls. The fences got new posts. The cattle multiplied. Nell proved herself useful in ways no one expected. She couldn't do heavy labor. She was still too young, still recovering from years of neglect, but she had her mother's mind. Sharp, quick, hungry for learning. She wants to go to school, Clara told Caleb one evening. Real school, in town. Then she goes. It's expensive, and with everything else we're trying to rebuild, she goes. Caleb's voice was firm. Whatever it costs. That girl's got a brain that shouldn't be wasted. Your mama would have said the same thing. Clara stared at him, teeing. You never met my mama. Didn't have to. I met you. Caleb almost smiled. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Nell started school in September. She rode into town every morning with Ruth Brennan, who'd recovered from her gunshot wound, and decided she wanted to be a teacher. The two of them became inseparable, sisters in spirit, if not in blood. She's going to be something, Ruth told Clara one day. That girl's smarter than half the adults in this town. Give her a few years and she'll be running the place. She's already running my kitchen, Clara said. Kicked me out yesterday. Said I was doing it wrong. Were you? Probably. The federal trial came in October. Clara had to testify. So did Tom. So did Webb and Patterson, and a dozen other ranchers who'd been terrorized for years. Blackwood sat in the courtroom with his expensive lawyers and his expensive suit, but the polish was gone. He looked smaller somehow, diminished, like a snake that had finally been defanged. Miss Stone. The prosecutor was a young man from Denver, sharp-eyed and relentless. Can you describe for the court what you found in the defendant's office on the night of June 15th? Clara took a breath. I found surveys with dates that didn't match the original deeds. I found letters between the defendant and his lawyer detailing exactly which property lines to falsify and how much to pay the surveyor to lie. And I found a list of 7 names, 7 ranches with amounts paid to make problems disappear. Objection. Blackwood's lawyer stood. The witness is illiterate. She couldn't possibly have understood, I'm not illiterate. Clara's voice cut sharp. My husband has difficulty reading. I don't. And I understood every word in those documents. The courtroom murmured. Blackwood's face went red. Furthermore, Clara continued, I have a memory that doesn't forget. Every date, every number, every name. I can recite them all if the court would like. That won't be necessary, the judge said. Continue. Clara did. For 3 hours, she laid out everything she'd seen, everything she'd memorized, everything Blackwood had done to destroy people who'd gotten in his way. When she finally stepped down, her legs were shaking, but her voice had never wavered. Caleb was waiting outside the courtroom. How'd it go? He asked. I think we won. You think? I know. Clara took his hand. It's over, Caleb. It's finally over. The verdict came 2 weeks later. Guilty on all counts. 12 years in federal prison, plus restitution to every family he'd defrauded. The news spread through the territory like wildfire. People who'd been afraid for years suddenly weren't. The shadow that had hung over the valley for so long finally lifted. They're calling you a hero, Tom told Clara over dinner that night. The woman who brought down Vernon Blackwood. I'm not a hero. I just did what needed doing. That's what heroes always say. I say it because it's true. Clara looked around the table. At Caleb. At Nell. At Tom, who'd become family in every way that mattered. I didn't do any of this alone. None of us did. That's the point, ain't it? Caleb's voice was quiet. Alone, we were easy targets. Together, we were something else. What? Unbreakable. Winter came hard and fast. But this time, Caleb wasn't facing it alone. Clara managed the supplies with a precision that bordered on obsessive. Nell helped with the inventory, her quick mind turning chaos into order. Tom came by every few days ostensibly to check on the horses, but really just to share meals and stories and the simple comfort of belonging somewhere. You know, Tom said one evening, when you first got off that stage, I thought Caleb had lost his mind. He probably had, Clara said. I was sitting right there, Caleb muttered. I know. Tom grinned. That's why I said it. But I was wrong. You're exactly what this place needed. What he needed. What about what I needed? Tom's grin faded into something softer. I think you found that too. Clara looked at Caleb across the fire. At the man who'd tried to send her away on the first day and couldn't imagine life without her now. At the scars on his arm and the way he still flinched sometimes when fire crackled too loud. At the way he'd learned to trust again slowly, painfully, one day at a time. Yeah, she said. I think I did. The reading lessons continued. Every night after dinner, Clara sat with Caleb at the table, working through words that still tangled and twisted in his vision. The letters move, he said one night frustrated. They won't stay still. Then we find ways around it. Clara pulled out a piece of cardboard with a narrow slot cut in the middle. Try this. Hold it over the page. Focus on one word at a time. Caleb tried. Slowly, painfully, he worked through a sentence. Then another. Then a whole paragraph. I can see it, he whispered. Clara, I can actually see it. You always could. You just needed the right tool. You're the right tool. I'm your wife. That's different. Is it? Caleb looked at her. You fixed my water pump the first day. You fixed my finances the first week. You fix my heart somewhere in between." He touched her face. "Now you're fixing the one thing I thought was unfixable. What else would I call you?" Clara didn't have an answer, so she kissed him instead. Spring arrived like a promise. The snow melted, the grass came back green, the cattle that had survived the winter were fat and healthy, and Clara's belly had started to curve in a way that made Caleb's eyes go wide every time he looked at her. "You're sure?" he asked for the 100th time. "I'm sure." "But how?" "Caleb Stone, if you don't know how by now, I'm not explaining it to you." "That's not what I meant." He was grinning now, a real grin, the kind she'd only seen a handful of times since they met. "I meant, are you happy about this?" Clara took his hand, placed it on her belly. "Feel that?" "I don't feel anything." "You will." She smiled. "And yes, I'm happy. Terrified, but happy." "Terrified of what?" "Being a mother, doing it wrong, turning into someone my own mother wouldn't recognize." "Clara," Caleb's voice went soft, "your mother would be proud of you. Everything you've done, everything you've survived, everything you've built. You didn't know her. I know you, and I know that everything good in you came from somewhere." Clara blinked back tears. "When did you get so good at saying the right thing?" "I had a good teacher." The baby came in August, a girl red-faced and furious with lungs that could wake the dead. "She's got your stubbornness," Caleb said, holding her for the first time. "She's got your eyes," Clara replied. "What do we call her?" Clara looked at her daughter. This impossible thing. This life that existed because a scarred rancher had sent a badly written letter to a mail-order agency and a blacksmith's daughter had been brave enough to answer it. "Hope," Clara said. "Her name is Hope." "That's perfect. It's what your mother would have wanted. What my mother would have wanted." Clara touched the baby's face. "It's what this family needs." Nell came in an hour later, her face flushed from running. She stopped at the doorway, staring at the bundle in Clara's arms. "Is that your niece?" Clara smiled. "Come meet her." Nell approached slowly, carefully, like she was afraid the baby might break. "She's so small. She'll grow. Can I hold her?" Clara transferred Hope into Nell's arms. The baby fussed for a moment, then settled. Nell's eyes went wide. "She likes me. She's smart." Clara leaned back against the pillows. "She knows family when she sees it." The years passed the way years do when you're building something that matters. The ranch expanded, the herd grew. The barn that had once leaned dangerously to the east now stood straight and solid, rebuilt by hands that knew what they were doing. Hope grew fast, stubborn, curious, reading by age 4 because Clara started early and because she had her father's refusal to quit. "She's going to be trouble," Tom said one day, watching Hope chase a barn cat across the yard. "She already is," Caleb replied. "Best kind of trouble." Nell finished school at 17, top of her class. Offers from colleges back east that made Clara's head spin. "I could go to Boston," Nell said one evening. "Study law, become a prosecutor like the man who put Blackwood away." "You could. But—" "No but." Clara took her sister's hand. "If that's what you want, you go. We'll find a way to pay for it." "That's not what's stopping me." "Then what is?" Nell looked out the window. At the ranch, at the land, at the life they'd built together. "I don't want to leave," she said quietly. "This is home, the first real home I've ever had, and I'm scared that if I go, I won't find my way back." "Nell," Clara turned her sister to face her. "Home isn't a place, it's people, and we're your people whether you're here or in Boston or on the moon. You can leave and still belong. That's what family means." Nell's eyes filled with tears. "You really believe that—" "I know it, because I spent 2 years on the other side of the country, and every day all I could think about was getting back to you." Clara smiled. Go learn how to put bad men in prison. Then come back and visit whenever you can. We'll be here. Nell went to Boston. She graduated top of her class. She became a prosecutor. She put 3 more men like Blackwood behind bars before she turned 30. And she came home every summer just like Clara said she would. One evening when Hope was 5, and the ranch was thriving, and life had settled into something that felt almost peaceful, a traveler stopped to ask directions. He looked at the spread, the barns, the cattle, the children playing in the yard. Fine place you've got here, he said. We built it, Clara replied. She was standing on the porch, her second child, a boy named Samuel, after Tom's middle name on her hip. Must have taken years. It took everything, but it's ours. The traveler tipped his hat and rode on. Caleb walked up from the pasture. His limp was worse in the evenings, always would be, but he was smiling. That real smile, the one Clara had fallen in love with. Who was that? Nobody, just passing through. Caleb climbed the steps, stood beside her, put his arm around her waist. Do you ever think about that first day? He asked. The stagecoach. Every day. What do you think about? I think about a man who almost made the worst mistake of his life, who almost turned around and rode away from the best thing that ever happened to him. Clara leaned into him. And I think about how glad I am that he didn't. I was scared. I know. I'm still scared sometimes, of losing this, of waking up and finding out it was all a dream. It's not a dream. Clara turned to face him. It's better. It's real. And real doesn't disappear just because you're afraid. How do you know? Because I've been afraid every day since I got off that stage. Afraid I wasn't enough. Afraid you'd see through me. Afraid that everything I touched would turn to ash the way it always did before. Clara's voice cracked. But I stayed anyway. We stayed anyway. And that's what made it real. Caleb kissed her forehead, her cheek, her lips. Read to me tonight, she said. What do you want to hear? Anything. I just like hearing your voice do it. That night, after the children were asleep and the house was quiet, Caleb sat by the fire and read aloud. His voice was still slow, still careful, but he read every word. Clara listened with her eyes closed, not hearing the words really, hearing the miracle underneath them. This man who'd hidden in shame for so many years now sharing his voice without fear. Caleb. Yeah. You know you saved me too, right? He looked up from the book. What do you mean? Everyone talks about how I fix things. The pump, the finances. You. Clara opened her eyes. But you fixed me too. You gave me a place to belong. A family that was mine. A reason to stop running. You never ran. I ran for 2 years. Before I got on that stage. I ran from Missouri to Kansas to every nowhere town that would take me. Her voice dropped. I told myself I was looking for something, but I was just running from the empty space where my family used to be. And now the space is full. Clara smiled. Took a while. Took a lot of work. But it's full. They sat together in the firelight. The way they'd sat together that first night, strangers who'd somehow seen each other clearly enough to take a chance. Clara. Yeah, I love you. I know. She took his hand. I love you too. Even when you leave your boots in the middle of the floor. Even when you forget to tell me things until the last minute. Even when you... I get it. He was laughing now. You love me despite my many flaws. I love you because of them. Clara squeezed his hand. They're part of the package, and I wouldn't trade the package for anything. Outside, the summer night pressed close and warm. The stars scattered across the sky like promises. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote howled, and another answered. The Stone Ranch still stands in Wyoming territory. Different name on some of the deeds now, different cattle in the pastures, But the locals still call it the Stone Place. They still tell the story of the mail-order bride who was supposed to be plain and the scarred rancher who almost sent her away. They tell it to their children. Their children tell it to theirs. And the story always ends the same way. Not with a kiss, not with a sunset, not with any of the soft, easy things people expect from love stories. It ends with two people standing in the dirt, side by side, hands rough from work, eyes clear from honesty, choosing each other one more time. Because that's what love is. Not a feeling, not a promise, not a moment that sweeps you off your feet and carries you somewhere safe. Love is a choice you make with your whole body every single day, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And the Stones made that choice every day for the rest of their lives.